All right, good evening, everybody. David Paul with you, Chief Meteorologist here at KHOU 11 News. We are live on Facebook and I believe YouTube, Twitter as well. So our digital news director is sitting right next to me, and in a little bit we're going to take your questions about this potential tropical threat, this tropical system that is being forecast to move into the Gulf, perhaps strengthen rapidly, and perhaps impact somewhere along the northern or northwest Gulf Coast, and that includes us as a possible threat. First, let's set with the big picture. There are 3 active tropical disturbances that we are watching. They have names. It's Invest 97, Invest 98, and this spot in the Caribbean is Invest 99. Now, of the 3, these 2 are going to stay out over the open water of the Atlantic. There won't be any threat. The spot in the Caribbean Sea is going to move west and we think eventually get into the Gulf of Mexico. And this is the one, Invest 99L. L stands for Atlantic Basin. 99 is the number we put on it as an area where we can now begin to run the tropical spaghetti models. And the Hurricane Center began to run those today. I'm going to show those to you here in just a moment. Our tropical disturbance, you can see it's beginning to get that look. It's a little bit of a twist to it, a little counterclockwise rotation beginning to show up there. It's an indication that it's getting a little better organized. And once we get a closed circulation at the surface, it'll be upgraded to a tropical depression or tropical storm. This is the visible satellite looking down from outer space. And so as darkness is falling over the Caribbean, we're losing the visible satellite. But I still wanted to put it up and show you to you because you can see the structure of this is beginning to come together. Inflow on the south side, inflow at low levels on the north and west side. I don't think we have a cutoff low here just yet. That southwesterly portion of the circulation is often the last to complete the circle, but the satellite imagery is also looking rather healthy. The system itself is sitting over warm water, and even though we had grace go through here about a week ago, the water temperatures out here, sea surface temperatures, are not only warm, 84, 84, 84, but they're also deep. That warm water extends down hundreds of feet. So as the storm moves along, it upwells some of that water. Sometimes if there's cooler water deeper under the surface, it can pull up cooler water and stunt the system. But that does not look like it's going to be a factor. And in the Gulf of Mexico, the sea surface temperatures are very warm, 85, 86, 88, just about bath water up there on the Texas and Louisiana border there. And so there's plenty of energy to feed this storm. Where is it headed? So these are the early track guidance, the earliest runs of the spaghetti plots that the Hurricane Center runs all their computer models, and they started running them today. And in general, you can see the track across the northwest Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico and perhaps impacting somewhere along the Texas, Louisiana, but maybe even the Mississippi, Alabama, or Florida coast. These are all in play. Possibilities stretch from Brownsville all the way to Panama City. That's an 800-plus mile stretch of coastline where we have the possibility of seeing a strong tropical system make landfall early next week. Now, where is it going to end up, and when will we get better guidance on this? 800 miles, what do we do with that? Well, already there are plans in place tomorrow to start flying not only the Hurricane Hunter that flies into the system itself at low levels, but the high-level flights are going to begin tomorrow as well. So the Gulfstream 4, nicknamed Gonzo, this is NOAA's flying laboratory. And as they fly across at high levels around and ahead of the storm, they measure the meteorological conditions of the atmosphere that the storm will be moving into, will be developing into. And after they get those samples, they feed that real-time data into that suite of computer models, the spaghetti plots, and once that data gets in there, you get a much better outcome. They quite often will tighten up and help us really begin to sharpen the pencil on where this system may end up going. So the system is interesting. It's going to be battling a couple of things. There are 2 mountains of air that are going to show up as we head into Sunday and Monday, and one will be on the east coast, one on the west coast. These are called ridges of high pressure. What they are just like mountains of air. One mountain on the east coast, one mountain of air out west. And in between the two, we're going to get a valley. Now, these tropical systems want to take the path of least resistance. So it is going to move into that valley, somewhere in that valley. But the valley is wide, all the way from the South Texas coast to almost the panhandle of Florida. So until we get some better computer model runs, more data from Gonzo, that computer models can then chew on for a little bit and reinitiate on, it's going to be tough to pinpoint exactly where this thing is going to end up going. Two of the models we've been leaning heavily on before, and now that we've got just the early runs of those spaghetti plots, are the GFS, the American model. That's the model, the isobars in yellow, and the European model, the red, the isobars, the lines of equal surface pressure in red. And going into Friday evening, they're in fairly good agreement that we've got a system developing here in the Northwest Caribbean, maybe just off the western tip of Cuba. And then they begin to diverge in the track and the timing. So the American model is a little further north and east than the European model as we head into Sunday morning, but both do rapidly intensify the system to hurricane strength, maybe strong hurricane strength. The latest runs, the American model, the GFS, has a landfalling hurricane just south of New Orleans as we head into Sunday night. That's a much faster time frame than the European model. It has a hurricane making landfall on the southwest Louisiana coast as we head into Monday afternoon. So about an 18-hour difference there in the timing. And obviously that'll make a big difference. Folks in New Orleans, if that American model does verify, have a much smaller time frame to prepare. But it also means really that everybody along the coast needs to be looking at this and thinking about your family's preparations. Are you ready? Do you know your evacuation route if you're on the coast? Do you have supplies if you're inland and are just going to hunker down? We'll talk more about that in just a minute. Computer models then continue. I know what you're thinking. Is the storm going to sit somewhere? No, it's not forecast to. They both continue to move the storm inland at a pretty good clip. So at the moment, we don't see the storm slowing down and just sitting on anybody. That's good. Today is, appropriately, the 4-year anniversary of Hurricane Harvey, a storm that did not hit Houston. The hurricane hit Corpus Christi. We ended up getting the ancillary rain from the system as the storm kept us on its wet side for 4 or 5 days in a row. So Houston and Hurricane Harvey, it's an interesting relationship. The hurricane did not hit us. What we did have was the rain from Harvey as we stayed on the wet side of that system. I think the strongest wind gust we had in the Houston area from Harvey was about 36 miles an hour. Okay, so let's take a closer individual look at these models. So here's the European model, individually run. It brings a hurricane to the southwest Louisiana coast. That's going into 4 p.m. on Monday. So that's the slower solution. The quicker solution is the GFS, the American. This is the latest run. It's the 18Z. And it brings a hurricane into the New Orleans area Sunday, 7 p.m., about 18 hours faster than the European model does. Both models, however, have one similarity in common that I think is rather eye-opening, in that they both rapidly intensify that system to possibly a major hurricane. So why is it being forecast to rapidly intensify so quickly? Yes, there's plenty of warm water out there, but that's not the reason why it's forecast to intensify so quickly. It's because of the upper level winds. So I want to show you what's going on up here. So this is the upper level wind pattern over the Gulf as we stand forecast for tonight at 10 o'clock. There's a little southwesterly shear out here. If a storm were to get in this position with this type of wind flow at the upper levels, this is at 34,000 feet, the storm would be sheared from northeast to southwest and it would weaken its development. It would not rapidly intensify. That wind shear tilts the storm over, tears it apart. But the upper level wind pattern is forecast to change. Not only change, but become very conducive to what we call upper level diffluence or exhaust, expansion way up there at the top of the atmosphere at 34,000 feet. These tropical systems, think of them as heat engines. The heat is drawn off the surface from that warm water. It then goes through the engine, up through the storm, and then you've got to have exhaust. And the exhaust is out at the top. And that exhaust works best when you have this pattern, a ridge of high pressure way up top of the atmosphere. So down at the surface, you've got intense low pressure counterclockwise. But at the top of the atmosphere, 34,000 feet, you've got winds blowing in the opposite direction, a ridge of high pressure. But that it creates the outflow, that's the exhaust. And if you know anything about car engines, you want to make them go faster, get more air flowing through them, get that exhaust really opened up. And that's why the models are intensifying this tropical system so rapidly once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. It's that upper level ridge. So what should you be doing? I can tell you what my family is doing. We started yesterday just kind of having a conversation. You know, hey, are we ready if a hurricane were to come to Houston? Are we ready for this? What supplies do we have? Checked. What do we need? Made a little list. Food, water for each adult for, you know, I have a minimum of 5 days, but you want 1 gallon of water per adult per day is the minimum on water. Know your evacuations routes if you're on the coast. If we are asked to evacuate, if that happens, where are the evacuation routes for where you live? KHOU.com. We've got a great resource for that. And monitor the forecast twice a day. Now, I know you have questions. I see Randy Klein has turned around to face me, which means we've got questions. So let's bring them on. And good evening, everybody on Facebook. How y'all doing?
Yeah, we've got a few. We'll start with Miguel Albaran.
Okay, Miguel, this is your question.
He's asking, what has to happen for Galveston to be on the dirty side?
That's a great question. Let's just talk about that. So, Miguel, good question. So let's talk about the dirty and the clean side. So this is the GFS, the American model, the latest run. It takes the center of this hurricane and puts it over New Orleans. So where's the dirty side of this hurricane? The storm would be moving north. You take the forward motion and you look to the right. That's the dirty side. That's where the heaviest rain and wind and surge will be. In this scenario, Houston, everybody on this side is on the clean side. The winds are not as strong. You have an offshore flow. The surge is non-existent. You get away from the center. In fact, it goes in the opposite direction. So in this scenario, that would put us on the clean side. For us to be on the dirty side, we would have to have a landfall of the center to the southwest of Houston. That would put us on the dirty side. Now, at the moment, the latest models put us on the clean side. But I have to stress that at the moment there is a much larger degree of uncertainty in these models, and they could change, and they probably will change a little bit. Great question, Miguel.
Okay. And coming off of that, Kayla Mason Garcia.
Hi, Kayla.
Asked which model is more accurate typically, the GFS?
That's a great question. Everybody's asking that. Kayla, good question. She asked which model is more accurate. Which one do I believe in is probably what y'all want to know. I don't trust either of them right now because they're keying off a developing system that hasn't formed yet. The system right now has no low-level center, and I'm going to back up here to the satellite view. It's got no low-level center, so there's nothing for the computers to really initiate off of to get a good computer model run with more confidence in it. What I need to see is, okay, here's the center. We've got a low-level center. We've got a tropical depression. Now all the models can key off of that, look at all the conditions out ahead of it, and when that happens, you get a much better forecast track. Now, that being said, so far this year, we've noticed in the Weather Office that the GFS, the American model, has been a little more reliable. In years past, I can remember the past couple of years, it's been the European that has been more reliable. And I have seen it where, you know, the models have their seasons. Sometimes it's the GFS that's right all season long. Sometimes it's the American, sometimes it's the European. At the moment, at least this season, the GFS, the American model's been a little more accurate. What that means for this storm remains to be seen. Great question.
Okay. We do have a lot of people asking, you know, about Galveston and how safe is Galveston. I know It's a little too early to tell.
The only way, so people are asking about Galveston, how safe is Galveston? The only way to make it safe is for you to be prepared. That's the only way to make it safe. So that if it does come our way, if you have marine interests, you've taken care of that. If you have family and kids, you know your evacuation route, and you're already thinking about, okay, if this did come here, how would I get out and where would I go? Would I go to, you want to go inland? Would I go to Dallas? Would I go to Austin? Where are hotels? Just start thinking about that. So that will lower your stress level tremendously just in thinking about it and having a family conversation and then watching the forecast. I think it's too early to be thinking about like making a move right now, but it is worth thinking about what would we do, where would we go if that were to become a likelihood. And right now, again, it's anywhere from South Texas all the way to Pensacola, Florida. We can't nail it down yet. I hope that helps.
Tara asks, based on what we know now, what is the approximate date of landfall?
Sure. Tara wants to know what is the approximate date of landfall. And let's go over that again. The two models that we're leaning on for the moment, the GFS, the American model, and the European model, have two relatively different outcomes. They're both sensing the storm moving between these two ridges of high pressure, but the timing may be quite different. And we don't have that nailed down yet. So as we look at the two different model runs, the GFS in yellow is a faster solution. The storm's moving faster to the north. The European model is slower. So here's the answer to the question as it stands right now. One possibility is a landfall along the northern or northwest coastline Sunday night. The European model has a landfall Monday afternoon. So they're about 18 hours apart. So Sunday night's a possibility, maybe as late as Monday afternoon is a possibility as well. Good question, Tara.
And Danny Don Reyes is asking about preparations. He's asking, should he fill up his gas tank now or wait? And what might be another couple tips to get ready now?
So I can just share with you what I'm thinking about is just making sure, you know, at the moment, make sure my tank is at least half full. We don't have to run out and fill up everything right now, but make sure your tank's at least half full so you have some gas to move around if you have to. If you have a generator, and I have a small generator, my plan is, and I've done this, I did this during Ike, I've got a small generator, but it will run my refrigerator, which I can tell you is a gigantic luxury when the power is out. I don't care about, I'll sweat, I'll sleep in the heat, that's fine, I don't need AC. We'll have water, food, and we'll have, hopefully, a refrigerator that runs on my generator. So I'm making sure that I've got my gas cans are filled up with gas, so I've got 2 or 3 days worth of gas to run my generator. I think that's the best advice on gasoline. Just begin to top off your tank, get it at least half full going into the storm so you're not like on empty. And the reason is if we lose power, it might be very difficult to get the pumps to work. They're electric. Those pumps that bring gas up at the gas station, without power, they won't have it. And if we were to have a big hurricane come in here, your ability to move around may be extraordinarily restricted. You may not be able to get to a gas station for a couple of days. I hope that helps.
Gloria wants to know when the next Hurricane Hunter flight is.
So they have one scheduled tomorrow morning. They start tomorrow morning. They haven't started yet. The next will be the first with this one, and tomorrow morning they're going to fly the low level and the high level and get a whole lot more data to put on those computer models.
Okay. And Tara's asking, I know intensity is hard to project, but she's asking an estimation on how strong the storm will become.
So Tara, that's a great question. How strong will the storm become? In hurricane forecasting, the most difficult part to forecast is the intensity forecast. There are so many factors through the vertical column of the atmosphere that can impact intensity, and sometimes we just can't see them all. A little puff of wind at a certain level can disrupt the circulation, weaken a storm, keep it from strengthening. Or that little forecast shear may not show up, and a storm can very rapidly go from Cat 1 to Cat 4, sometimes in a matter of a day and a half, 2 days. We've seen that. So that's the toughest part. That being said, the models range from Cat 1 to Cat 4, but these are still, at the moment, long-range computer models, and intensity is something we just have to wait and see, and that's why, we at the beginning of hurricane season, you just plan for the worst and hope for the best in these situations.
And one more, Randall Burrows is asking, are the high-pressure domes forecast to move or stay stationary?
Okay, Randall asking about these high-pressure domes that are going to be influencing the track. Let me just show you how this sets up. It's a great question. There's Gonzo. We really need that guy to get flying and get some good new data to put in the models. That will help tremendously hone this down over the next 36 hours, but it's going to take a day and a half, 2 days to get it in there. So here's the upper level setup. This is how it stands this evening. That's the center of our mountain of air. High pressure, we're looking at winds at 500 millibars, so about 18,000 feet. And this literally is a mountain. It's a mountain of air. We've had this set up for the past week. This is the setup that was in place when Grace came across the Yucatan and was pushed into Mexico by that mountain of air to the north. Now, these storms, they want to turn poleward by the Coriolis effect. They want to go north, but it can't climb a mountain. So it just gets shoved into into Mexico to the west in this particular scenario. So the moment that mountain moves, whatever's down here is going to turn north. And that's what's going to happen. That mountain of high pressure is going to split. We're going to get one mountain over here over Atlanta. We're going to get another big mountain over El Paso and New Mexico. And that is going to create a valley in the middle. These systems want to take the path of least resistance. So you're not going to see it going into that mountain. You won't see it going into that mountain. You're going to see it turn into the valley, the easy path in the middle. But exactly the path, is still uncertain. That's just the big, broad setup right now. Great question. I hope that answers your question. Those are the mountains in play right now.
Okay. We've got time for one more. Jay Jefferson is asking, is anything else forming behind it? And the other two systems, too, that are out there?
At the moment, no. Jay, we got just the 3 systems. And those other 2 are forecast to stay out there. I'm not worried about them at all. It's just this guy, 99L for the moment. Ida and Julian are the next 2 names on the list, so this will either be named Ida or Julian, depending on if the one in the Atlantic forms first or if this one forms first. All right, great questions, and I really think at this point, I just can't give you a real pinpoint answer onto exactly where this is going to go. Although models this evening have been trending into Louisiana, I'm not taking any of those seriously right now. I'm slowly preparing my family, and we're preparing the station here for the possibility that this storm could come close to us or maybe hit us. Hopefully it won't. I think we're going to get a much more sharper forecast on the track in about 36 hours. It's going to take that long to ingest the new data into the models. So we may not know for another day and a half, 2 days, really a good picture of where it's headed. Best thing to do is stay close to the forecast. Watch us twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. We're on 4:30 to 7 in the morning. Of course, there's the noon news. And then 5, 6, and 10. 10 o'clock's a good one to watch. We update all the models at that point. Usually have a fresh update from the Hurricane Center. And that will be our next live update. We'll be on KHOU 11 News on the TV side at 10 o'clock. We will see you then for the next live broadcast. Great questions. Nice being with you this evening.